My guest today is actress Savannah Basley, and she plays the powerful vampire Angela on the popular Reginald the Vampire hit series on SyFy Channel. Now, Savannah is inspired by sci-fi tropes and creatures all her life and is a biracial actress starring in sci-fi and horror TV, and she's proud to represent women who look just like her. Now, from cult classics like Buffy the Vampire Slayer to cultural icons like Queen of the Damned, Savannah's fierce style is a reflection of the sexy slayers that have come before her. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome actress Savannah Basley to the show. Welcome, Savannah.
Thank you so much for having me. That was quite the introduction. Thank you.
Well, you're very, very welcome. And I have to ask, I learned that you were born in Kansas, but raised in Canada. How did you end
Yes,
up
sir.
in Canada?
Yes, sir. I was born in Fort Riley, Kansas. My dad's military. So we moved around a little bit, and then my parents separated when I was quite young. So then we came to Canada. Um, yeah, and I grew up here. That's where my mom's from.
Well, I was doing some research on your background, and I've talked to other, uh, well, film people, recording artists from Canada, and I learned something because you are biracial.
Yes.
So, what was it like growing up in Canada being biracial?
Oof. Um, it wasn't the easiest place to grow up. I mean, definitely at the time, it was the early, kind of like middle 90s and into the early 2000s. So things were still not um, the nicest, I guess. I feel like people seem to think Canada is like a very like special place where like nothing bad happens. But that's definitely not true at all. Canada, it's kind of a little bit more um, ignored, if you will. Like it's not always like super blatant, although I did face some like pretty blatant racism and ignorance growing up in a very small town. It was a very, very small town. Like me and my sister were the only people of color. And for a lot of people, we were like the first people of color that they had met, some of them the only people of color that they had met. So it was a very different experience, but I find now it's definitely getting a lot better. But for the longest time, there was this kind of um, feeling almost like they just kind of like we were there, but they just kind of ignored us in a way, like didn't really.
Well, did you put up with bullying in school?
Yes, yeah, a lot of bullying. I went to three different elementary schools.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, how would you all right, so how would you compare it to, let's say you were raised in America. How do you think would it be any different?
I don't know. That's the thing. And like I always wonder I do always wonder that like if I grew up in a city, like even if I grew up in like somewhere like here, Toronto, I grew up it's about 3.5 hours away from here where I did grow up. So I mean I have thought about that, what it would be like if I would be like a different person. But I feel like just having more of a community around me would have made it a little bit of a different situation. I don't know. I always felt like I was never like white enough for my white friends and never black enough for my black friends. Like it was a weird place to sit. People would ask me like weird questions like why don't I talk black? Like just the randomest, like just really weird things. It was just yeah, it's a strange middle point to be in, to be honest.
You're saying the same thing that I've talked to with especially actors who um, who are of color,
Yeah.
and they've told me the same thing. Their When they were growing up, their friends would say, why don't you talk black?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean?" For them, it's just how they talked. So I was talking to this Tony Award winning actress, and she told me, she's like, my friends kept acting like I was all uppity. And she goes,
Yeah.
"But she was taking acting lessons at 9. She was playing piano. And she goes, it's just how I talk. So why are you, why are you acting like that? I'm trying to act white when I'm just being myself.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like I remember in around like the ninth grade, I still had like a lot of trouble making friends, things like that. And I remember people would be really intimidated by me for some reason. Um, I don't know why. I was like so open to being everyone's friend. I just wanted, I just wanted to have friends. So like I wasn't, being like I wasn't a mean girl or anything like that. And so I developed this thing where, and it even still happens now, but I started like talking a lot more like this. And I would like throw a little bit more girliness around and I'd say like, and I'd sit in the higher part of my voice. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, Savannah, you're like so much nicer than I thought you were going to be. Like, you're so less intimidating. Yeah, it was actually pretty crazy. So like when I did do that and kind of, I don't know, made myself a little bit more valley girl or something that I guess they could relate to easier, I found that people were a lot nicer in my high school, which was a very interesting experience. And I didn't realize that I did it until I got to college. And some guy was like, why are you talking like that? And I was like, talking like what? And then I was like, oh, okay, I think maybe I've developed some kind of like masking thing here.
Well,
So I'm,
maybe they were, yeah, maybe they were scared of your early star power. Maybe that's what it is. And now they should be intimidated. You're a vampire.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe they knew something I didn't know that I was going to be. Yeah.
Well,
But yeah.
well, Savannah, let me ask you this: what led you into acting?
Oh, probably honestly that like just kind of growing up feeling a little bit lost. I started out singing, and that was something that I guess even though they would bully me about other things, that was one thing where they were like, oh, okay, well she can't like she has like a nice voice or whatever. So like that was always like my way in, if you will. And then in I started, I mentioned that I went to three different elementary schools. One of them was this like middle school in Kingston, and it was kind of like an arts program. It was called Leap, and it was basically like they had three different programs in the middle school. So there was like core, which was just like your regular. It was a grade 7, 8 school, like a middle school. So you had like core, which was like regular, and then there was like an Atlas program for kids that were really good with computers, and like a challenge program for like the really big like smarty pants, and then there was the art program. And so I got into that, and then I just started doing musicals and plays and all of that stuff. And I really wanted to be on Broadway and go to London to the East End and all of that stuff. So I was like, okay, I've done like singing lessons, I've done my dance lessons. Now I just have to work on the acting. So then I decided to go and do this 2-year program at Seneca College. It was for camera, on camera and voiceover acting. And so I did that, and then I just really fell in love with camera acting. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. So then I just kind of stayed on that path.
Well, what was your first acting job?
Ooh, my first acting job, like actually getting paid.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Forget the free stuff. Let's talk about getting paid.
Yeah, my first actual acting job was it was a TV show called The Art of More. It was on the Crackle Network. And yeah, that one was with Dennis Quaid and Kate Bosworth was in it. Yeah, and I like had just like I was like working retail before it happened, and I got the part, and it was very exciting. And yeah, so then that was my first acting gig.
And so that set you on a pretty good path to where you are now.
Yes, yes. And then after that, it was, I had like a little break after that. And then I really just like worked on building up my resume, doing like a bunch of guest star roles and stuff like that. And then I got more recurring roles, which was really exciting. And then I could quit retail, and that was fun.
That is one of the things that amazes me the most. And I learned this last year. When SAG had their strike, there's over 160,000 actors. Only 1% of that can claim to be a full-time actor. And I've been talking to more and more full-time actors, so I'm like, well, hopefully that 1% will turn into 2% pretty soon.
Yes.
Yeah, because I will go on people, I'll go on IMDb and you'll see these gaps in people's resumes because it's not a surefire career, but your career just keeps going on the up and up. Were you always into sci-fi and horror films?
Yes. I wouldn't say sci-fi in general. I kind of like got into sci-fi a little bit later. My thing, I'm a very big horror movie buff. I love horror movies. And since I was quite little, I loved horror movies and the spooky things. I loved those. Even though sometimes they would absolutely terrify me and I'd like have to like, watch a Disney movie afterwards to like refresh myself. I still like I loved it, craved it, and then as I got older, I yeah, I just really enjoy horror as a genre, like the all encompassing. I love everything about it. I love psychological horror. I love, the supernatural, the thrillers, the slashers. There's so much that encompasses horror that yeah, I can never get enough of it. Even like if I want to watch like something funny, like a comedy, it's usually like a horror comedy.
Wow. Well, what are some of your favorite horror films?
Oh, some of my favorite horror films. Everyone, oh, I should really like have this listed in my mind, but for some reason, every time someone asks me, my like brain goes completely blank. I'm a big fan. I really liked. Let's see. I'm trying to like go back, so I'm not just like naming like recent movies. But I mean, okay, let's start. If I were to do like recent movies, the evil, when evil lurks, that one that just came out was so. I think it's just still stuck with me. I just thought it was so good. I really enjoy that director. I'm a really big fan of Guillermo del Toro as well. I love his mind, the way that it works. I got to go to this special in Toronto. They had like an exhibit. It was Guillermo del Toro's Monsters, and that was really cool. They had like all of his models for a lot of his creatures, and they kind of had it. I remember this one room that they had set up that's like his office, where I guess he always has like rain sounds playing in his like office where he writes, and it's like a very like old like library type room. It was really cool to go into. And yeah, I really enjoyed that exhibit. But yeah, Guillermo del Toro's like I really enjoy his stuff. Who else is there?
Because there's all
I
these
mean,
common ones like Halloween. There's Elm Street. Things
yes,
like Saw. Oh my gosh, that's the type I can't stand.
yes, I know. Yeah, so I was yeah. So I remember in high school I started to get into the Halloween, which I really enjoyed. But then I also am a little bit I really enjoy Rob Zombie's version of Halloween. There's just something about his stuff that is just it's so outlandish and weird, but at the same time I like get where he's going with it. It's very interesting. I also love a good like Bayou like kind of horror flick. I find that so interesting. I want more like Bayou horror. I think there's so many cool like themes that come out of there, out of like the South. It's just so interesting. Um, Especially because there's so many different influences down there that I just think it's really
You're
interesting.
right, and there's there's really not enough of those. And see,
Uh,
with horror, with all the different filmmakers, they have their own style. I know with Halloween, most of those had different directors. Oh, excuse me. And the thing that I want to see is I want to see a more cinematic type horror films where they're really where you see they spent some money. And see,
yes,
I like Interview with a Vampire. It's
great
not
film.
classified as horror, It's more like drama, but it really is a horror type film. But that is a cinematic type horror film. And I think we need to see more of those. I mean, I guess you could call Twilight cinematic in a way, with those types of stories. I mean, were you a Twilight fan?
I was a teenager when they came out, so yes, I was.
Hey, that's okay. I mean, I've seen them all. It's just like everybody else, binging on Harry Potter, but that's definitely not horror. But, I want to see more, people take horror in more of a, like I said, cinematic, more with a beautiful way of visualizing the story and still, maybe scare people. But, when people ask me, what kind of films you like, I said, I think Interview with a Vampire was probably one of the best films. And people are like,
It's
are you kidding? I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. You got to sit there and watch it for what it is.
that is very true. It's a very great, that's a great film. And even like my friend gave me her Interview with the Vampire to read. And even now when I read it, I can still hear it in like Brad Pitt's voice is like still in, in my head as I like read it. That's very true. But thank you for bringing that up because it just launched a bunch of other films in my head. But like, I'm still so mad that Toni Collette didn't get like some kind of award for Hereditary. That was a beautiful performance. Absolutely amazing performance that she did in that film.
Yeah, because see, the
Like,
thing that I never get is you have Halloween, you got Elm Street, you got Saw, you got all of these massive franchises, these sequels. For me, I'm like, why didn't y'all ever do a sequel to Interview with a Vampire? Because vampires don't die.
yeah, exactly. You'd have so much to talk about. Yeah, there was a few more other books that they could have done. I mean, they did do Queen of the Damned, but they
Now,
could
why
have.
do you like Queen of the Damned so much?
I know I keep bringing this up. It's Aaliyah. I love her character in that. I just remember when I saw her, I was so taken away. I mean, I'd already seen her in like I knew like a little bit of her music. I was still quite a little bit young, and so I didn't really listen to it too much. I'd hear it on the radio, but I remember seeing Romeo Must Die. She was in that movie. And I was like, oh, this is like so cool. And at the time, both me and my sister did like karate. So like we were like, my mom was like, oh, here's like a martial arts movie or whatever. And it has Aaliyah in it. And so we like watched that movie and I was like, I loved that movie. So then I was like, oh, Aaliyah, whoever this girl is, I love her. And my mom was like, oh, well, that's Aaliyah. So then when Queen of the Damned came out, I was so excited to get to watch it because I loved vampires. And then just I just loved her take on it. I loved her look. I loved the fact that she brought in her like dance kind of physicality to the character. Like the way that she walked around was so mesmerizing. Just the look that they also gave her, like that, like I just remember the sheen. That was like a big thing in my head for the longest time. It wasn't gold, but it was like greenish gold. It was so interesting what they did to like her makeup. And yeah, I just thought that was a really I thought she just did it really well. And in terms of like vampire goddesses, whenever I think of them, I think of her because yeah, I just think she did just such an amazing job. And I just remember the feeling of when I saw her. I just thought, she's beautiful. Like, this is just amazing. Like, yeah, I loved it.
Well, so did you pull pieces from her character to form your character Angela in Reginald the Vampire?
Yes, I tried. I mean, I'm not a dancer like she is, but I tried to bring in the cat like animalistic quality that she had and the regalness that she had to her character. I wanted to bring that into to Angela. And yeah, so I definitely I tried to bring it in as much as I could. That's why I'm in a lot of corsets throughout Reginald. because Angela's, I've said this before, but like Angela's, especially in the first season, her furniture was really like this couch that they'd have me sit on. It was really low to the ground and it was really like wide set. So if I wanted to get up from the couch, you kind of did that thing where you're like, huh, like to get up. And I was like, well, that's not very graceful. And like a vampire's not really going to move like that. So the corsets really kept me like upright and I had to like move in a certain way, which I felt like helped Angela.
Was
And
it
I like,
more? Well, okay, with vampires, and I've seen this in other movies. Is it more where the character has to have this appearance of gliding during the scene?
yeah, I think so. I think there's this element of
Because it's an
everything.
elegant movement.
Yeah, yeah, and this idea that everything comes very easily to them. Just movement and everything is very like easy and it's quick but and graceful in a way. So that was something that I wanted to bring into it.
Yeah, that's
Kind of
it's
that
almost,
Nosferatu, like the shadow creeping up type of
yeah,
that slow move.
I call it. It's like an elegant gliding, almost a royal type movement and persona, like you said, because it's kind of like everybody's beneath us because
Yes.
we will live forever and you won't, kind of thing. So
Yes.
so because you're a regular on Reginald the Vampire, I mean, when you first got that part, what went through your mind?
Oh, I was really excited. There were so many things that I wanted to try with the character. I was excited to be a vampire again. I got to be a vampire in Two Sentence Horror Stories. It was just like one episode where my character was a vampire, and that was a lot of fun. But getting to delve deeper into the kind of the lore of vampires, I was really excited for, just because I quite enjoy the idea of like in terms of lore. I'm a really big fan of like folklore and lore and stuff like that. So just in terms of that, I was really excited to get to dive into that.
And now
And
you're in.
and
Oh no, go ahead, Savannah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Angela's just such a fun character that like even yeah, right, like seeing how sassy she was and so delightfully evil in a way. I was excited to play that.
Well, now you're in season two. How does that feel?
Good. I really enjoy this season. I really do. I think we've definitely like got our footing in this season and everyone's characters feel really like known to them. I was gonna say I can't quite find the words, but it's like you know them like the back of your hand at this point. And so it was a lot of fun to get to film this season and get to open up. I'm excited that the writers gave Angela more to do and really opened up her character. First season, I felt like she was very like rigid in the way that she went about things. And so this season, we just kind of like dived in and just opened Angela up, and that was a lot of fun. I just kind of gave into the silly, like the campiness of the show, and just really had a blast with her.
Yeah, campy works. I mean, what's the fan base like?
We have a really wide range fan base. There's a lot of I know like for me at least, I have a lot of people that came from watching me on Winona Earp, or Surreal Estate that have come over to watch me on Reginald. So I know that most of my followers and fans that interact with me come from that fan base, which is really nice to know that they follow and support. Winona Earp has like one of the craziest fan bases out there, like one of the loyalist fan bases. So it was really cool to see that a lot of those fans like followed me over and are supporting me on this one. So
Yeah,
that's really
that's right.
exciting.
I forgot because yeah, you were in Surreal Estate, and
Yes.
that's a full Canadian series, right? It only airs in Canada.
Yes. No, it airs all over, but it is filmed in Canada with a Canadian crew as well. It's also a sci-fi show. I call myself a sci-fi baby at this point because all my like all of my shows have been sci-fi. But yeah, so yeah, we filmed that in St. John's. This Reginald gets filmed in Victoria.
Now, how far is Victoria from Toronto? I don't know
Ooh,
Canada.
it's oh, Victoria is part of Vancouver. It's like Vancouver Island.
Oh, I've been there. I never even remember the name. I said, I've been to Vancouver. I've been into the island too. So, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I always get to film on either coasts of Canada, which is really fun.
Wow. I mean, what for you though, what would be your dream role?
Oh my goodness, that is a really hard question. I mean, I think it would be honestly anything in like an A24 film would be amazing. Amazing to do because I love the work that they put out. They always seem to find the coolest movies. And there's just so many up and coming directors and just a whole lot of stuff that they end up putting out that I'm just absolutely in love with. So honestly, I would love to just be in any type of A24 film. Um, I would love to do something. I also have like a really big love for the first season of True Detective. That's where I also get from like the Bayou Point, like this the South.
You can't
So
beat the first season.
I watch it at least once a year.
When when they did season 2 and you don't carry over Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, I'm like, this is garbage
I
because I hated season 2. I don't think anybody's watched much of it since the first season because the first season, that was perfection.
it it literally is. It was so good. Like yeah, I mean it's hard to top it. The storyline was amazing, but there it was so layered. Like it was absolutely amazing. And I'm not surprised because of who they had playing the characters that they probably added a lot to it, but also just yeah, everything about it I just thought was so good. The storyline was interesting. There wasn't a whole lot of like, a lot of the times with shows, sometimes I find that I don't want to really call it a plot hole, but like they'll start down the line of something and then it just kind of like fades off and you kind of like forget about it and you're like, oh, I don't know what happened to that. I didn't really feel that with season 1 of True Detective. Everything came full circle.
It did, and like you said, the writing was perfect. And then when you would watch an episode, every episode ended with something that you didn't see coming. Now, when season 2 rolled around with Vince Vaughn, I love Vince Vaughn, but there was just, I didn't think the chemistry worked, and I didn't think the writing was nowhere near as grand as season 1. And I haven't watched it
Yeah.
since.
Yes. I mean, it took me a couple of watches. I remember one episode. I don't even know if it's the first episode, but there was like which I'm a really big fan of like long monologues, like Mike Flanagan. Love his work as well. He, the one takes and the long monologues, I do not mind. And like Mike Flanagan, because they're very interesting. But I just remember every time I would get to that Vince Vaughn monologue, there was that really long one. I would always like check out and I felt so bad because I wanted to I don't know. I was like maybe it's just my like ADHD kicking in where I just like this is too much, but I could never get past that point. So then finally one day I like sat down to watch it and I just skipped to I just skipped that part because I was like I need to get to the rest of the episode so that I can see if I like what's going on, which maybe I shouldn't
Yeah,
say, but
yeah, no, no, no. I mean, I've had to, I've had to watch screeners, and I try not to fast forward through them because 99% of the time I'm going to watch the film from beginning to end and really try to understand what the director was wanting to do. But there are just some out there that
yeah.
you're like, how did they get the money for this garbage?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, yeah, where you're like going through and you're like skipping a few, like, especially because like sometimes I'll watch things on my iPad or my phone and I'll like have to like skip through a few things and be like, okay, okay, okay. And then I'll like go back to like where I was watching just to see how much longer I have in it, if anything interesting is going to happen.
Yeah, the first thing I do is the first thing I do before I even sit down to watch the film is I'm like, okay, how long is it? Because to
Yes.
me, the sweet spot is at least 90 minutes for a movie. When it goes to 2 hours, I'm like, okay, is this going to keep my attention? Am I going to have to drag through it? Or is it going to start out slow and then it just ends like spectacular? I mean, like, oh yeah, you got to see it, and then you tell people, just get through the first few minutes and you'll be okay, kind of thing. But
Yep.
film. Everybody has their own vision, but I don't like boring.
Yes, I'm not opposed to a slow burn, but just as long as you're burning something.
I never could figure out. For the past few years, it's kind of like Scorsese. Every film is 3 hours, and I'm like, really? Why? Just turning into a streaming series if you're going to do that. I don't want to sit in.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit in a theater for 3 hours because half of me is type A workaholic, and I'm like, I got things to do.
Yep. Yeah, yeah. It's really that, and I feel so bad because I want to go to like the cinema more, but it's so hard when everything is so long. Like you can't pause to go to the bathroom, and you want to come back and be like, what did I miss? But then you don't want to be like talking in the theater. Like there's so many elements to it that I think it was a lot easier. I think maybe people just went to the cinema more when it was shorter, maybe just because it was easier, but now it's like it's a little bit harder when things are so much longer.
Well, I think we live in a society today because everybody has a smartphone glued to their hand, that everything is
Yeah.
swipe up, swipe right. Everything is you only have less than, see, they said the attention of a goldfish is like what?
I think it's like three
Maybe 5
seconds.
seconds, and the
Yeah.
human attention span is now less than that. So you only have 2 or 3 seconds to
Oh
catch
my god.
the audience's attention, even on a smartphone. But then you want them to go to the movie theater and sit there for 2.5 to 4 hours watching a film. You're crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. Which is like, I mean, and I feel, sometimes I feel bad saying that, but also sometimes if it's sometimes I am guilty of that where I will end up doing other things while I'm watching films. Not because I find it boring, but just my like ADH kicks in. But that's why I love things that, like there's a lot of descriptors and like, not like, not, what is it, where it's like, show versus tell. I do love like a show versus tell. But if there's really good dialogue and things happening, then I can sit there and like listen while I'm also like, I don't know, doing another thing and still completely love a movie and like I'll go back and watch it again and things like that. So there are plus and minuses to that, I think,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
now let me ask you this. Do you ever sit down in front of the television? And so, we have Netflix, we have Hulu, we have Paramount, the list goes on. Do you ever sit there and feel like you're wasting a half an hour to an hour trying to find something to watch?
Yes, it gives me so much anxiety. Like my anxiety will like kick in because I'm like, just find something, just pick anything, anything. And then like, especially like if I'm sitting there, like my food's getting cold because I'm like one of those people who are like, I have to find something to like watch before I like eat my stuff. Then I'm like sitting there being like, I gotta find something. And like my anxiety gets going because I just like, there's too many options. There's too many options. I don't know what I'm gonna like. Um, but I guess that's kind of fun. I do sometimes miss TV where it's just like whatever is on is
Well, see,
on.
I remember the day when television was, it's kind of like back in, I call it the Seinfeld days, where you knew Seinfeld was going to be on a Thursday night.
Yep.
And if you missed it, you missed it. There was no DVRing, no recording the episodes, and you missed it, and you'll never see it again unless it went into syndication. And I
Yeah.
kind of miss those days, and I found out that even with streaming, the studios have learned to stop uploading a whole season at one time. Now they
Interesting.
upload 3 episodes, and you have to wait a week to see the next one because they found out that the public was binge watching, and then they would go to a friend, "Hey, did you see such and such?" And they're like, "No, no, no, don't tell me about it. I haven't seen it yet." So they found out that that was causing a big problem with the audience and with fans. So let's just upload 2 or 3 episodes to kick it off, and then you have to wait every week for the next episode. I think that's the better plan.
Yeah, I do quite enjoy the 3 episode because I do like to binge watch, and sometimes my fiance also loves to binge watch stuff, but at the same time you can only watch so many episodes. Like 3 is like a sweet spot. It like gets you into it to the point where you're like into the story and you're like, "Ah, I need to know what happens next." And then you're okay with waiting. It's annoying because everything happens so fast nowadays that you're like, "Oh, I have to wait." But at the same time, it gives you time to, especially if it's a really good show, it gives you time to like think about it and ponder, and like, you're on Reddit being like, I wonder, like, what does this mean, and like, what is this, and you're like looking at what everyone else is saying, like wondering if your theories are right. But in terms of your Seinfeld comment, I remember I do have one small bone to pick with Lost for that reason. I remember when Lost was on television, I was so into it. I was like young. This was like one of the first shows when I was younger where I like watched it from start. You know what I mean? Like I was in it, and I missed one episode because of like, I think it was like play rehearsal or something. And I was, no pun intended, but I was so lost the next episode, and I was so mad because they didn't, like, Lost should have had the previous episode and then the new episode because so much happened.
Well, they ruined that series. They ruined it. And I can't remember why that series got ruined. I don't know if there was a strike during that time because we ended up with this gap. And then when they finally brought it back, everybody was just like, they're over it. Cuz you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, that was the other reason why the studios are going to stop uploading a full series, because once, if we watch 8 episodes, or let's say we watch 13 episodes and binge it, we're waiting a whole year for the next season.
Yeah. Yeah. That was rough. Game of Thrones, doing that with Game of Thrones was really hard. Really hard. Because you'd just be, I mean, before we found out how, whatever you want to say about, the endings or the writing, whatever, there'd be different things where you just be like, can't believe they did that. And then you're brewing on that for an entire year.
Well, my gosh, Stranger Things has killed us all.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, now they're I know they're doing season 5, but technically they're too old.
Yeah, they'd have to do some kind of like jump. Cause yeah, at a certain point, there's just, it's hard to age down, especially, I mean, they tried it with it, they did it with It Part 2, which I thought they did a pretty good job of that. But it is true, especially like young teenagers, as teenage boys, the difference between like, the voice, but at one age, and then their voice at like 20, they go from like up here to like down all the way here. And you're like,
Well,
how are you
they're
gonna?
creating the series.
Yes,
And it's going to
yes.
be, and if I remember correctly, the storyline, it's basically the prequel to the movie. So the series is based on everything that happens up till the first movie.
Oh, that could be fun.
So they're going way back in time to really, I guess, build the story on how it came to be. So I'm like,
Oh,
this could actually work.
yeah, that would be really cool. Especially, I mean, there's that whole element of because they brought in like the natives in the first one, like how they had to face it. It could, I remember with the latest Predators movie, Prey, that they did, where they had it was also like native or indigenous people fighting the predators, and that was a really interesting concept. So that could be really cool, especially if they bring that in. And I would also love to see like more native representation on screen. There's some great stories that could be told.
Yeah, it's funny because with all of the series that are out there for streaming, there's not a whole lot of horror.
No.
I literally cannot sit here and think of one horror series that's on.
Well, there's two. I do have two that I like track. I mean, there's besides Reginald, which I feel like I should shout out. Besides Reginald and Surreal Estate, as lighter. They're very like light entry. If you're not too into horror, but you want something a little spooky, then those are like fun ones to watch. But in terms of like if you're like more of a horror buff, I really enjoyed From. That was a really cool one. Have you seen that one?
No, I've
From?
not seen From.
Oh, it's so interesting, so cool. People get like stuck in this town and they can't leave. I just thought it was really interesting. There's like a bunch of creatures. It's really cool. There's actually a gentleman, one of the actors from Lost is in it. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. And I really enjoyed Evil that was on. It was on like a main network, and then they pulled it onto, I think, a different, more like a streaming network. But Evil is also
Oh, that's right,
quite
Evil.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that I enjoy that one. That see, it's funny because that's like a lighter show that I would watch.
Well, if you want drama, because I don't want to give this away if you haven't seen it, but have you seen the brand new series Sugar with Colin Farrell?
No.
Oh, oh my gosh. I don't want to give this away because it all I'm going to say is this. If you're into sci-fi, paranormal, maybe a little, I don't want to say horror. I don't think this would fit horror. Then you're going to love watching Sugar. All the episodes are out. I think there's only 6, maybe 8 episodes, and we had to wait every week. Oh, a new Sugar is on. Colin Farrell. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
If you all right, since we both liked the original True Detective,
yeah.
yeah, this falls into that category.
Oh, sweet.
And now I'm
Okay.
like, and after I've seen them all, I'm like, please, please, please bring season 2.
Oh, amazing. That's
Yeah,
exciting. Okay, Sugar.
yeah, this is a series that is right up your alley. You will love it. The acting is stellar.
Oh, amazing. I'll have to keep. Okay, we'll add that to the watch
Yeah,
list.
Sugar. All you have to do is type in Sugar Colin Farrell and let it roll.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
add it.
Now, for you, Savannah, what actors or actresses would you love to work with?
Um, I would love to work with I have two that I always end up saying. I mean in terms of actors or actresses, I would really Kirsten Dunst. I just find her so I love her work. I love her work with Sofia Coppola as well. Like, I know it's not horror, but I just think she does amazing things. Melancholia with that movie was amazing. I thought it was such a good portrayal of depression. Um, yeah, I love her work. I think she's so underrated. And I just think there's just something about her that whenever I watch her, I just am fascinated by her. Like, her comedic stuff is great, but her drama stuff is also great. And I think she's just starting to get a little bit more the recognition that she deserves, that I think we're going to see some amazing stuff from her.
Well, did you see
And
Civil War?
no, not yet, but
I haven't
it's
seen
on
it
my
either.
list. Yeah, but I mean, just from the clips I was seeing, it looks amazing. Like, yeah, I would just love to see her in um, more things that just let her actually like sink her teeth into it. Because I think she's got great acting
Yeah,
chops.
because she said in an interview probably a few months back, where she's fighting aging in Hollywood.
Yes, which is such an annoying thing that the women's roles get like you get delegated to certain things. Like it's silly and it just doesn't really make sense. And I that's something that I just hope doesn't happen to me is like, I would love to like there's so many things that I'd love to sink my teeth into right now, but like I hope that I don't either miss out on it or I have to wait till I'm older in order to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, like
yeah,
that would be but yeah, I did read that yeah, she's fighting the mom roles a lot, I guess, which is,
yeah. And that's where it's really getting to be unfair in Hollywood because all of the older male actors they can get any role they want to at any given time. But then you
any
have all of these amazing female. You have all of these actresses that should be getting roles. We should be seeing them more, but it's almost like, well, you know, feature films don't have the lead character is not a woman, and if it is, it won't make any money. And I'm like, you're an idiot because you don't know your audience.
Yes, exactly. There's so many rules, especially like that it could be a male or a female, but they're always casting males in those roles. And which is, it's fine, but at the same time, like there's so many other actresses that maybe could have portrayed it better or could have done just as well. Um, yeah, that's a tough one. I think it's an age
I
old issue, but
Well, for you, okay, so I know a lot of your background has been television series. And
yes.
what is your resume when it comes to film? Or is that something that you want to step into more?
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to step into film. I like TV. TV's a lot of fun. Um, it's a little bit crazier episodic television. The only thing with TV is, especially if it's not like a mini series or something where it has a lot of money, it's very like rushed. So you don't really get a whole lot of time to really delve into your characters or, in film, you maybe take a whole day to film one scene or maybe like two scenes in like an entire day, whereas when you're filming in television there's like 4 or 5 scenes that need to be shot within a day, so everything just moves so much quicker, and yeah, there's less time to really like delve into the character, get the fun and juicy bits that you like as an actor out of it. um
Well,
yeah, so I would love to move into film. That would be really really cool.
on Reginald, how many pages do y'all go through on a film day?
Oh, um 6 or 7 pages.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow. I have talked to actresses who have worked with Tyler Perry,
Yeah.
and you've probably heard the same thing. A day's shoot could be what? I don't even think it's 20 pages. Isn't it more like 80?
Yeah, that's wild. That
It's
must be like one shot.
because he figured out. So a lot of people don't know this. So when they tell Tyler, okay, the budget's $250,000. This is how many episodes, and he's like, fine, I can do it. And then that's reason why you hear these 80-page film days, because he knows how to get the job done and he doesn't waste a lot of time. And you'll always hear, and he says the same thing that Clint Eastwood will say: we'll take care of it in post. And you move on to the next scene, but all his stuff looks fantastic. But he knows how to get the most out of his actors. And all of the ones that I've talked to that have worked with him, they go, if you want an education on set, you work for Tyler Perry.
Yeah, I imagine that would be a crazy crazy learning experience. Because even on Reginald, you know, it was a learning experience for me as well. So I could only imagine doing that many pages. That is wild. That is wild. I hope they get their scripts like really early in advance and no changes. Just you can't change anything.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
yeah, that would make life a lot easier. And
mm,
but boy, I mean, you're busy.
yes. Yep. Busy. Hope to be busier.
And that's what it's all about with television and film is just staying busy. And this is the greatest thing about this industry is that you can work on multiple projects at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. It's great. And it's fun as an actor to switch from one to the other. I mean, it's like stressful and crazy and you're like, "Oh, what am I shooting?" and like that. But like then afterwards you're just yeah, it feels like cool and you're like, "I did that. Did
There,
that."
there you go. Well, do you have anything new coming up besides Reginald the Vampire?
Currently, not right now, but just Reginald working on some stuff behind the scenes. But we'll see. We'll see what comes up shortly.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you this. The star just keeps getting brighter and brighter for Savannah Basley, and you need to tune
Thank you.
in to SyFy Channel and catch Savannah Basley in Reginald the Vampire as she plays the powerful vampire Angela. And Savannah, I want to thank you so much for coming by today. I've had a great time with all this great conversation with you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it was a great to just get to chit chat about film and TV. I love it.
Well, where can all of the fans connect with you on social media?
I try to keep my social media circle small, so I'm just on Instagram.
Hey,
So
that
you can find
works.
me on yeah, you can find me on Instagram at that Baisley kid.
Oh, all right. Well, and I agree with you. I like out of all the social medias, I always lean towards Instagram more than any of them. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like a safer space.
Yes, yeah, exactly. I don't like too many voices coming at me from too many angles, so I just try to stay at one place, and Instagram's the place for me. Maybe it's just
Hey,
yeah, my millennial coming out.
hey, that's all right. That's all right. Well, Savannah, thank you so much for coming onto the program today. And ladies and gentlemen, you can catch all of the replays of our interviews with the top film directors and producers, screenwriters, and actors like Savannah Basley, and more on Bond on Cinema. We are available on YouTube and on a dozen audio platforms such as iTunes and Spotify. So please subscribe. I want to thank you for watching and listening. And as for me, I'll either see you at the movies or from the red carpet.